Have you ever stopped to wonder if the God you were taught to fear, follow, or seek is truly the real God? Or could there be a much deeper source, a greater silent intelligence hidden behind everything that exists, and no one ever explained it to you? Today, you're going to understand the difference between the traditional God, full of rules, shapes, and images, and the hidden God, the pure consciousness that ancient traditions called the source. If you feel like your faith has lost meaning, if you question why your prayers aren't answered, if you feel disconnected, empty, trapped in guilt or fear, this video might unlock something inside you. Many people live in spiritual conflict without realizing that the problem isn't lack of faith, it's a lack of clarity. And clarity begins when you dare to question the images imposed upon the divine. Here we're going to compare, in a simple and direct way, two concepts that completely shape how you live, think, and relate to yourself in the world. Once you understand this difference, you may start seeing your life with more freedom and less suffering. Maybe you'll realize that God was never far from you. You were just looking in the wrong place. The purpose of this video isn't to convince you of anything. It's to make you think, to give you a perspective that maybe no one has ever given you, one that can bring peace, courage, and a deeper sense of meaning to your existence. Every insight you take from this video can become a seed that transforms your relationship with spirituality and with yourself. And before we start, comment below. How do you imagine God today? As a person, as a force, or as something you still can't define? Your comment helps the channel grow. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, because this is just the beginning. When we talk about the traditional God, we're referring to the figure most religions shaped over centuries. An image based on human traits, human emotions, and human judgments. This God resembles a king, a strict father, or a supreme ruler. He's separate from us, watching, analyzing, and deciding. It's the view we learned since childhood, often without questioning it. The concept of the hidden God, however, is completely different. It has no form, no face, and no personality. It's not an individual being, but a consciousness, a presence, a limitless source of existence. This idea appears in ancient, mystical, and philosophical traditions. And unlike the traditional God, the hidden God is not out there, but within and around everything. This video exists because many people live in spiritual conflict without knowing why. They feel something is missing, that faith doesn't fulfill them, that God seems distant. But the problem isn't God, it's the way we were taught to imagine God. When the image is wrong, the experience becomes incomplete. Today we're going to correct that lens. The intention here isn't to attack beliefs or disrespect traditions. On the contrary, it's to expand your vision. It's an invitation to see God in a deeper, less limited way, one that connects you with who you truly are. You don't need to abandon your faith. You just need to understand that it can be much bigger than what you were told. Throughout this video, you'll see that comparing these two views isn't just a spiritual debate. It's a tool of self-knowledge. Because the way you see God determines how you see life, the world, and yourself. And when that vision changes, your entire reality changes with it. Get ready to see something that may have been right in front of you all along. Many people today experience a spiritual emptiness they can't explain. They follow traditions, rituals, and customs, but don't feel a real connection with the divine. Faith feels heavy, filled with rules and fears instead of peace. This creates a silent internal conflict that lasts for years. And almost always, the root of that conflict is the limited image built around God. When you imagine God as distant and judgmental, you automatically feel small, guilty, and inadequate. The relationship becomes based on fear and constant attempts to please. This emotionally and spiritually drains you because nothing ever feels enough. That spiritual insufficiency follows millions of people, and many don't realize the cause is an incomplete view of the sacred. This rigid image also prevents people from experiencing the divine in an intimate and personal way. They become trapped in ancient beliefs that no longer reflect their reality. They're afraid to question, as if thinking we're disrespecting God. But questioning doesn't destroy faith. Questioning frees faith. And that liberation is what so many are unconsciously seeking. Another problem is that the traditional God places spirituality outside the person. It's always something external, a temple, a leader, a ritual, a rule. This keeps people from realizing the power within themselves. They live disconnected from their own consciousness, thinking they must earn divine attention. But the hidden God completely transforms this dynamic. When you understand that God is not separate but deeply connected to everything, including you, the experience changes. The conflict diminishes, the guilt fades, and a sense of clarity appears. This video matters because many people are spiritually suffering due to misunderstanding, not due to lack of faith. And when perception changes, life begins to align. The traditional God, the one presented by most religions, has deeply human characteristics. He feels anger, punishment, jealousy, preference, and judgment. In short, he is a superhuman with absolute power. This view was useful in many eras to organize societies and establish moral standards. But spiritually, it limits our understanding of what the divine truly is. This God is usually imagined as a strict father observing every human action. He rewards the obedient and punishes the disobedient. This dynamic creates a spirituality based on fear and constant vigilance. The individual lives feeling watched, evaluated, and threatened by punishment. This generates a fragile emotional relationship with the divine. Over time, this image created guilt and inadequacy in many people. Humans make mistakes, but under this view, mistakes mean unworthiness. Emotional weight creates psychological and spiritual blocks. Instead of drawing people closer, it pushes them away. Instead of healing, it hurts. Instead of illuminating, it darkens the perception of the sacred. Another core feature of this view is the separation between God and humans. God is above, distant, in an unreachable place. Humans are small, flawed, and far from the divine. This separation creates a chasm that people try to fill for their entire lives. They pray, plead, and beg, yet always feel like God is too far away. Despite its limits, this view isn't wrong. It served a purpose in human evolution. But today, the world is awakening to a greater consciousness, and that consciousness requires a new understanding of God, one that creates connection instead of fear, clarity instead of confusion, presence instead of distance. The hidden God is not a figure, not a being, and not a character. It is the source of existence, the intelligence behind everything. It doesn't think like humans, doesn't react like humans, and doesn't judge like humans. It is pure consciousness, pure presence, pure creative energy. It is in everything and everyone, silently and constantly. This view appears in ancient traditions such as Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and the mystical writings of many cultures. They describe this source as limitless, invisible, and indescribable. It has no form because it is the origin of all forms, no face because it is behind all faces, no limits because it exists beyond time and space. The hidden God doesn't require rituals, behaviors, or rules to be accessed. It reveals itself through consciousness, introspection, and presence. It is accessed when you silence the mind, observe reality, and perceive the unity of everything. This perception doesn't require temples or intermediaries. It naturally emerges from within when you begin to awaken. Unlike the traditional God, the hidden God neither punishes nor rewards. It simply is. It doesn't control your life like a commander, but expresses itself through your own consciousness. This transforms the relationship with the divine from fear into understanding. You no longer see God as something separate, but as something inherent to your very being. This view liberates, expands, and heals. When you realize the divine is not distant, but always present, suffering decreases, loneliness disappears, guilt dissolves, anxiety becomes clarity, and life gains a completely new meaning. This is the God that has always been hidden, not because it hid itself, but because no one taught you how to perceive it. When we place both views side by side, the contrast becomes clear, almost shocking. The traditional God is external, distant, and rule-based. The hidden God is internal, present, and accessed through consciousness. One requires obedience, the other requires perception. And this difference completely changes a person's spiritual experience. In the traditional model, the relationship with God is rooted in fear, guilt, and the need to earn approval. The person feels they must behave correctly to be accepted. In the hidden model, the relationship is rooted in understanding, presence, and unity. There's no need to earn anything. You are already part of the source. The connection is natural, not forced. The traditional God builds a spiritual path full of intermediaries, rituals, and obligations. There is always something between you and the divine. With the hidden God, there is no distance, no blockage, no separation. Connection doesn't depend on external practices, but on an internal shift in perception. It's a process of awakening, not effort. While the traditional God observes human behavior with judgment, the hidden God observes human consciousness with compassion. The first says, obey or you will be punished. The second says, perceive and you will be transformed. This creates two completely different spiritualities, one based on fear, the other based on awakening. This comparison isn't meant to decide what's right or wrong, but to show how different views create different lives. Your view of God affects your self-esteem, your choices, your emotions, and your sense of purpose. When you change how you see God, you change how you see yourself. And that is more profound than it seems. Understanding the difference between the traditional God and the hidden God has the power to transform your life in a real way. Your relationship with the divine is the foundation of your relationship with yourself. If you believe in a punishing God, you become someone who punishes yourself. If you believe in a distant God, you feel alone. If you believe in a hidden, present God, you feel accompanied from within. When you replace fear with understanding, your mind calms. You stop worrying about invisible punishments and begin focusing on consciousness. This reduces spiritual anxiety, decreases insecurities, and increases emotional clarity. Life stops feeling like a sequence of spiritual obligations and becomes a journey of perception. You feel lighter and freer. Your sense of identity also shifts. In the traditional model, you are small, flawed, and unworthy. In the hidden model, you are part of the creative source itself. This elevates your self-esteem, strengthens your confidence, and gives you a real sense of purpose. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to reach God and start seeing yourself as someone expressing God through your life. The hidden God also changes how you face challenges. You no longer feel alone fighting against life. You understand there is a greater force flowing through you and guiding you. This makes you emotionally stronger, more resilient, and more centered. Problems still exist, but the way you respond to them changes completely. And perhaps the most powerful benefit is peace. Not a temporary peace, but a deep peace that comes from understanding. When you realize you were never separate from the divine, life gains a completely new meaning. You begin to live with more presence, more love, and more gratitude. It's as if an invisible weight is finally lifted from your chest. Imagine someone who prays every day, but feels their prayers aren't answered. In the traditional model, they think God is ignoring them or that they are unworthy. This creates sadness, frustration, and spiritual abandonment. In the hidden model, they understand that God doesn't answer like a separate being. God manifests through consciousness and inner clarity. Now think of someone who lives with guilt for past mistakes. In the traditional model, they feel God is disappointed and they must make up for their faults. This is emotionally imprisoning. In the hidden model, they realize the divine consciousness doesn't blame, it illuminates. Guilt dissolves the moment understanding appears. The past loses its power to imprison. Another common situation is feeling alone, even while believing in God. In the traditional model, this happens because God is imagined as distant. In the hidden model, you understand God isn't far, God is within. This changes everything because spiritual loneliness disappears. The person begins to feel a constant, silent presence inside. Think also of people who live with fear of spiritual judgment. They believe any mistake can distance them from God. This generates anxiety and obsessive behavior. But when they understand the hidden God, they realize separation doesn't exist. Fear becomes self-knowledge. Judgment becomes understanding. Even difficult decisions change meaning. In the traditional model, you ask God for an external answer. In the hidden model, you seek silence and inner perception. God doesn't impose decisions. God clarifies the path through your consciousness. This leads to wiser, more aligned decisions. Life begins to flow more naturally. In the end, understanding these two views of God is understanding two views of yourself. One limits you, the other expands you. One traps you in fear, the other frees you to live fully. It's not about choosing between religions or doctrines. It's about choosing which vision brings you closer to inner peace. And true spirituality always leads to peace. The traditional God doesn't need to be rejected, only understood. It represents a phase of humanity, a stage of collective consciousness. But the hidden God represents the next step: expansion, awakening. It invites you to see life with new eyes. And when those eyes open, nothing remains the same. The truth is simple. The hidden God was never truly hidden. It was always inside you, waiting for your perception to mature. It doesn't speak in words. It illuminates through consciousness. It doesn't punish, demand, or require. It simply is. And when you align with that presence, everything begins to make sense. Maybe what you once called God's absence was simply the absence of perception. Maybe what you interpreted as silence was actually pure presence. When you change your vision, you change your experience. When you change your experience, you change your life. And that is what this entire video wanted to show you. So before we end, take this phrase with you. The God you were taught to fear may have been only the shadow of something much greater. And that greatness is accessible to you now through consciousness. May this reflection stay with you and strengthen you. May it guide you into a deeper understanding of existence. If this video made you see something new, hit the like button right now. It helps YouTube spread this content to more people who are seeking awakening. Your support makes all the difference for this channel to keep growing. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe now. Here you'll always find deep reflections like this. Comment below. Which vision of God guided your life until today? The traditional God or the hidden God? Your comment not only boosts engagement, but also helps build a community of people awakening together. I read every comment. I truly want to know your perception and your experience after this video. If you know someone going through spiritual doubts, share this video with them. Sometimes one reflection like this is all a person needs to find clarity and peace. A simple share can wake someone up from inner darkness. And that is an act of love that always comes back to you. Here on the channel, every week I bring content that expands the mind and illuminates consciousness. So turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Your awakening journey is just beginning, and the deeper you dive into these reflections, the more real changes you'll notice in your life. Every video is a step in that transformation. Thank you for watching until the end. I truly hope this video touched something inside you. If it did, you already know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, God was never hidden. God was always there waiting for you to notice.